And welcome to Freebird Media. Thanks for joining us. Today I'm talking with Faith Goldy, independent journalist, who many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with. Faith, I'd like to thank you for talking with me today. I greatly appreciate it. As you're well aware, there's some interesting drama unfolding right now through social media regarding events that happened over the weekend at the Stifling of Free Speech on University Campuses event, where somebody asked a question about you, because you had originally been scheduled to be one of the panelists at this event the first time, and then it got shut down, and then you were removed as a panelist. And a young man asked a question about that, and Jordan Peterson and the other panelists answered it, and now a lot of people are unhappy with his answer, and there's a lot of controversy going on online. And GadSat has also responded via YouTube. So I'd like to just ask you some questions about it, if you don't mind.
Certainly. Can I just preface it by saying kudos to Freebird Media for being on the ground? As I understand it, you guys had the exclusive footage, and so it's great seeing alternative media being out there to get scoops that no one else really was able to pick up on. And also a preface, I don't like YouTube drama. I don't enjoy airing out my, personal political laundry. But at this point, the amount that my name is being dragged on a bit of a sleigh ride, I think that they've left me no choice but to speak up. So I'm thankful to Freebird Media for having me on.
Oh, thank you. So let's get right into it. One of the things I want to clarify right away is when they asked why you'd been removed, and Jordan Peterson answered first, one of the things that he brought up was that when you were down in Charlottesville, you were in journalist mode, and or officially in the mode of journalist. But I listened to the podcast, The Daily Stormer, and you were a guest on that podcast, not actually the one doing the interview, correct?
Correct. Journalists can both ask questions and be guests, being asked the questions. In that case, I played the role, or I was taking on the role of a journalist guest, not the one in the host seat.
So would you consider yourself like an on-duty journalist at that point? Or I've been on podcasts too before where I'm sort of like an off-duty personality just talking freely, right?
Right.
So were you like on duty as a journalist in that, or was it more just a casual conversation?
I always have my journalist hat on. I'm never very good at BSing. I'm always just myself, and I've been a journalist now in this field for shy of 10 years. So, the simple answer to your question rather is yes, I did have my journalist hat on. I was there to relate the events that I saw that day, and then provide some cultural commentary, of which I did both.
Okay, so in that case, the main criticism then is that you didn't. Jordan said he wished that you had asked at least one critical question. 3 would have been better, he said. But do you agree with that criticism, that you were obligated to ask at least one difficult question?
Jordan B. Peterson, and I should say this, I am a long-term fan. I clean my room. I aim every day to, sort myself out. I've attended many of his Bible series lectures, etc. So this is not a slight to him whatsoever. As far as I'm concerned, these are professional and political disagreements that we're having, and it's done so in a public space because, hey, we're both public figures in our own right. Himself, of course, a name that eclipses my own. But do I think that I had an obligation to ask those people questions? No, I don't. If I felt that obligation, I would have indeed asked those questions. I saw my obligation as that day to report on the events in Charlottesville as I saw them through my eyes. And it feels like tired news now, one that's been beaten through the press. But what I saw that day was that a group of people who had a constitutional right to free speech and a court order hold that constitutional right, see that all trampled. And so I shared that on a podcast. Now, I'll be completely frank with you. I had never listened to the crypto report before. It was the very first time I had met Asmodor, the host. But all that being said, now that there is this chorus of people who want me to go out there and, virtue signal and genuflect and say, I was wrong, mea culpa, I'm not going to do that. I've had some time in these past few months to reflect, and indeed, I stand by my interview. I did not say anything that I found was incriminating, and I did not see it as my role to launch an inquisition against the crypto report. And if people want me to say something different, sorry, not sorry, you're not going to make a rock bleed here. I'm not going to apologize for that interview. And hey, if Antifa wants to have me on, I'd be happy to do a chit chat with them too. Before this sleigh ride following Charlottesville, I used to go on several mainstream radio stations, people who had employed, frankly, race baiting members of Black Lives Matter. And I didn't, every time I got on for a round table, say, and by the way, let me tell you how I disavow of the BLM members you have on payroll. I didn't. I just answered the questions that I was presented with in the moment. I don't virtue signal. That's never been a part of my career, and it's not about to change because I've felt a little heat.
I hear you where you're coming from on that. I'm sympathetic to you on this issue for a couple of reasons. Do you remember the Halifax 5 issue that unfolded in the spring?
Mm-hmm.
There was a rally in Toronto with organized by the Students in Support of Free Speech, and at the end of the rally, Paul Fromm made an appearance there, who is a controversial figure, and a lot of people were upset about that. And after that, I interviewed James Sears, who's also Dr. James Sears, who's also a controversial figure, and a lot of people think that I'm like associated with them, or I agree with them because I spoke to them to begin with, and second of all, they thought that. But then there was also the argument that for pragmatic reasons, it didn't look good for PR to have Paul Fromm at that event. So
good old pragmatic reasons, Alex. That's what this is about, this fight. Remember, it's not about values or principles, it's about pragmatism. I just didn't get the memo.
Well, that's I know definitely Gad Saad's position. With this event, a lot of people are wondering, they want clarification on where you stand on a lot of that stuff, I guess, in Charlottesville, because, the Daily Stormer, they're pretty controversial. So, like, with the alt-right, would you say you endorse them outright?
The alt-right?
Yeah.
No, I didn't endorse the alt-right outright, so to speak. And I think most members of the alt-right don't see me as alt-right. It's just the same chattering classes that label people like Robert Spencer and Pamela Geller alt-right who say that. But just because I won't, again, virtue signal and disavow of them wholeheartedly. Look, the LARPing with the swastika armbands and the Sieg Heil is not good optics, okay? You're an idiot if you think that that's a means to achieving your end game. But like any story I have ever reported, I know that you're a very, very bright young Canadian, and we've kind of seen each other at various events and so on. So I hope that you follow at least certain parts of my career. I've always been told two criticisms: too much truth, and you're 6 months ahead of the story, okay? I always have approached every single story with a responsibility both to my subject as well as to my audience to study them wholeheartedly. Before the Unite the Right event, I had probably about 4 months in which I really undertook very serious studying of the alt-right to get familiar with, the bigwigs, to start reading about their literature, to see what their movements and all the different bifurcations and et cetera, and, all the offshoots of their umbrella really were. So I went there as a responsible journalist who, by the way, didn't see a single Nazi armband or Sieg Heil in the Charlottesville proper area. And everyone said, well, that's a tacit endorsement, because I didn't disavow of an entire group of people, largely young white men who feel disenfranchised in society, who feel that they've been told that because they're male and because they're white, they're not allowed to have an opinion and indeed, succeed, etc. in society. That because I said, some of these guys might actually be onto something. Maybe we should talk to them, air out some of this dirty laundry, not just keep on pushing them to the gutter where they're going to fester. That all of a sudden it was a tacit endorsement. Today's politics have become so cartoonish in the way that left and right has become that we've forgotten all about nuance. So I'm not going to apologize for studying these things. I'm not going to apologize for saying that yes, there is some intellectualism that has occurred on the alt-right. And I'm not, guess what? Because I say that the Daily Stormer has a right to free speech, it doesn't make me a neo-Nazi. Because I don't agree with everything that the ADL, proclaims as decree, does not make me an anti-Semite. And to this point, because Gad Saad's, his own personal follow-up video to the footage that you released, I have to say, it was something else. Faith Goldy means nothing to me, end quote, proceeds to spend 13 minutes talking about me, casts all of my audience as anti-Semites, and then says basically, don't show me who you are, show me who your friends are, guilt by association. Well, Professor Saad, the fact that I was about to share a stage with at least two panelists who I understand are of the Jewish religion, is that guilt by association? Am I all of a sudden pro-Jewish, a Zionist? Because all of a sudden the logic starts to break down. And I will say this to Gad Saad. He might not be aware of this, but okay, first point. Israel is in a religious ethno-state. I support them as a religious ethno-state. In fact, I've argued on the record in being in favor of the one-state solution. I love the wall in Israel. They understand demographics. That's why they don't naturalize millions of Arabs within the West Bank, because within 15 years they'd be outnumbered and there'd be a whole bunch of Arabs being elected to the Knesset, right? And I'm all for Israel's, borders and self-determination. I'm for it. And in fact, my clip, which I articulated, the one-state solution, became probably my most viewed clip in all of my journalistic history. Tens of millions of people have watched that. And indeed, dare I say, I'm a household name in Israel. So I find this business to be beyond insulting, but just ignorant. And how dare he get up there and say, basically, bring on the Jew hate and Faith's, a Jew hater by association. It's okay to be Jewish. It's okay to be Christian. By the way, there's some Christophobic nonsense going on his comments of that YouTube video as well. It's okay to be Christian. It's okay to be white. It's okay to be black. It's okay to be whoever the hell you want to be and who you are. But I have to say that I'm getting a little sick and tired of the victim card. I'm getting sick and tired of being told that it's not okay to be a certain type of people. And if you say it's just okay, not great, not better than, then all of a sudden that makes you a supremacist of some sort. And I'm not going to disavow just because, again, people tell me that it's what's right. People are going to say, all my life, Alex, sorry for going on for just 1 second. All my life, people have called me Islamophobic, homophobic, transphobic. Now it's anti-Semite and racist and a white supremacist. Bring it on. Your names don't scare me. All they are code words for heretic. And you're darn right I'm a heretic when it comes to this modern, sick political culture that we're in right now.
You know what? In that sense, I absolutely agree with you, and props to you. And I'd like to definitely address Gad Saad's comments individually, but just allow me to back up just for a moment. So with back to Charlottesville just for a second, I would say I definitely agree with you that talking to people is not endorsing them, and you're not obligated to do anything specifically. But what do you think that, as journalists, you specifically, like as an independent journalist, then because it is so tense in Charlottesville and something bad did happen, do you think that you should have? Do you feel like you should have addressed the issue more directly and sort of condemned certain things more openly, or do you think everything was completely okay and like there shouldn't have really been any problems?
The international stakes of Charlottesville changed when Heather Heyer died. This was something that I was unaware of on the ground because I wasn't watching CNN. I was just living it, okay? Did I need to address it? It was bad that James Fields accelerated his car when there was a group of people around him. That was bad. If I need to disavow of that, I will. It seems like common sense to me, but apparently that is the level of cartoonish politics we're at. I disavow of people running over people with cars. Cool, fam? Great. Now that we've got that out of the way. At no part does the alt-right, even the Daily Stormer itself, argue for violence against people. Many of them see themselves as an intellectual vanguard. They're philosophers. Some of them don't really have very much of a game plan of how they're even going to achieve their end games. A revolution is not something that's talked about in an call to arms sort of way. The Daily Stormer literally on their page has an asterisk that says something, and I'm paraphrasing, like, we do not believe in violence, right? So whatever happened in that car, and we're going to figure out more, and I should mention the fact that Heather Heyer's mother said that she died of a heart attack, okay? So right now, the facts of the case are that Heather Heyer died of a heart attack. No doubt, because of everything that was going on around her, and just by looking at her, frankly, she was not in a fantastic bill of health. We're going to find out more of what happened. Was it actually a terrorist attack, i.e. was there mens rea involved? Did he actually seek to hurt people? Was it a reaction? None of it justifies the fact that he accelerated on this car. This man will be brought to justice. This happened in America. He's not going to get any special exceptions. That being said, it politically charged Charlottesville in a way that I don't believe would have happened without that instance. Look what happened in Gainesville. So many of these so-called alt-right and far-right events that have happened since then. You see similar optics. You see blood and soil calls. You see tiki torches. And you're not seeing the same sort of noise made about it. It was that one instant that really catapulted the stakes of the game. I believe that's made the term alt-right somewhat toxic to label oneself as, just because I believe that optics is so important if you want to achieve something in the political and indeed cultural and social arenas. So I personally want nothing to do with that label whatsoever. Does that mean we should throw the baby out with the bathwater and say all these people are LARPing neo-Nazi racist killers? No, because I'm not an idiot. I understand nuance. I actually do my research. I'm not some sort of hyperbolic, hyperventilating weirdo. I'm approaching these things in a holistic manner and see that America is in crisis. Indeed, the West is in crisis. And you know what happens in world history, specifically Western civilized world history, when a bunch of young white men don't feel so good about the direction of society? Not good things. So I would like to make overtures to these young, testosterone pumped up men and say, look, let's keep on using our brains, not our fists. Let's keep talking this out. And hey, this is a good place to air it out. This is a good place where we can deal with things, reason things out, and say, these ideas, cool, keep them. These ideas, garbage, let's do away with them. But to say all of you are neo-Nazis, all of you are going to be censored in the political arena and in public life, they're going to begin to fester on the sidelines. And I don't want any part of that, because outside of, the possible consequences, it's just a generation lost. And I, for one, am not going to stand for it.
I can definitely resonate with a lot of that. So that's fair. Going forward then, we see that after that happened, you were removed from the event and then everything unfolded. So jumping to Gad Saad's position, because that's where we're at now on Tuesday. He said a lot of, I guess, personal things in his clip, and I'd like to address some of them. One of them, which I think might be a little unfair, is that he sort of questioned the validity of why you were invited there in the first place, which I think is not... I personally have seen you at events I've been on campus with you where Antifa have trashed the place, and we've been in riots together pretty much, where I've been trapped up against doors where I can't even leave, and like.
But I'm not a professor at a university, is what he said, so it doesn't matter, Alex.
True. I can see why from his position as an academic you might feel like you're not worthy of being there, but I just want to add my 2 cents that I think that I know that because I've seen you there personally at a lot of events. I think that it would have been nice to have a journalist perspective, maybe like in this culture war that we have going on campuses, and so I guess Peterson said what he said, and Gad's put out his video now. I also wanted to bring up Dr. Oren Amate, who I actually am a really big fan of, and I hope and I fear that he is not that he's getting a lot of hate and negativity that he doesn't deserve. And one of the things also that I'm concerned about that Gad Saad said is that you can judge a person by who they're friends with, which is where troubles me as a journalist, because I've interviewed a lot of people who are controversial, the majority of people so far, and I do associate with a lot of people who consider themselves white nationalists, and I do associate with a lot of like alt-right people. I'm not afraid to admit that I like talk to them and go to the same rallies as them. I'm not a member of the alt-right. I consider myself a strong individualist. I've always had that platform, but I'm also, like you, not afraid to admit that I talk to these people all the time, and I don't want to get thrown under the bus though, just because we associate with all kinds of people. Be
careful, Alex.
Right? And,
you gotta have thick skin in this game these days.
Nobody. I don't have. I do my own thing, so I'm not really afraid to say anything. But I think that there's a lot of anti-Semitic comments now on my YouTube channel because of where the spotlight is, and like the Daily Stormer, for example, has shown the Freebird media footage of the kid asking the question about you being removed, and so a lot of traffic has come to my site and flooded my site with anti-Semitic comments. I don't endorse any anti-Semitism and anything like that. So the fact that it's all there, that's not an endorsement from me, right? So same thing for you. Like, I'm sure you understand that. And like, but Dr. Oren Amate, Did any of his comments bother you? Because I feel like he's getting a lot of unfair negativity.
I didn't keep up with all of his Twitter stuff. Like, I mean, I'll be honest with you, he's been much more diligent than I in responding to all of the flare-ups. But I will say this, I'll take each one in turn. With respect to Professor Peterson, who I love, admire, I've interviewed, I've followed his career, I continue to. He has been, to me, almost like a modern-day prophet. I mean it quite seriously. This is in no way tarnished my discipleship, so to speak. His largest argument against my being there was one of journalistic integrity. If that is the case, then I should hope that every single mainstream media channel which he has appeared upon, he has given them the Peterson stamp of approval when it comes to their journalistic integrity, because let's just say our standards, perhaps in that case, wouldn't jive between him and I mean. With respect to Professor Gadsad, he devolved into a host of what I thought at least were uncalled for personal attacks, saying that I should have never been there, even though, as you mentioned, free speech has been something that I talk about a lot. I sometimes actually grow tired of it because I feel like we're going around in circles, and these are very simple arguments that people have been making for literally hundreds of years. On top of that, I was the very first journalist in Canada to break the story of M103, the motion that essentially brought Sharia law to Canada, something that he, in fact, testified about in front of the Standing Senate Committee, and it's something that I shared. I was very happy with the way that he conducted himself there, and I thought that he was a force for good there. He said then that my followers were anti-Semites, and that basically you are who you hang around with, guilt by association, which I thought was a below-the-belt, argument. I think that a lot of anti-Semitism that exists online is honestly, and it's not, make excuses or whatever. It just half of it's just an appetite for the taboo. In today's politically correct society, where everyone's constantly being told to shut up, there's an appetite for the taboo, and so you go for shock value. And so this is the lowest common denominator. It's like using swear words a lot in common speech. And then there's Dr. Oren Amate, who's probably made the most amount of overtures to me out of everyone with respect to direct messaging and so on. My only advice to him would be don't get caught up in it. Like, why are you, there's a saying in the Bible, don't throw pearls to swine. So if you say that these people are such and such, then why do you continue to engage with them? I don't understand that. When people call me all these different names, I mean, unless they've got a blue check and so we can have a little fun with them, I largely don't intermingle. They're going to think I'm this no matter what. And that's part of the reason why I think disavowing and virtue signaling, against, to counter signal, is such a useless task, because I could come up here and say all sorts of things about how I love these people and hate those people, and people are still going to think that I'm a certain sort of way and not the other, right? All of it is completely useless, because today, and this is what I wanted to talk about when it came to our tentative speech, our planned speech way back in August, was the idea that reason and critical thinking has been unlearned in society. It has indeed we've been taught the opposite. We've been taught tropes and jingles, so to speak, but we have not been taught how to properly, critically think. Why? Because we've done away with free speech. When you cannot articulate your ideas, you cannot work through them. When your neighbor is the same, well, then he or she is deprived of the same abilities, and then all of a sudden, our ability to communicate with one another, let alone ourselves, all becomes compromised. And as a society, we are unable to reason, right? So what I'd say to him in this case is, don't try to reason with these people who have within them zero cultivated abilities to reason, right? Unless you're saying that is there, and all of a sudden, so are they the monster or aren't they, right? I see a logical disconnect in some of the arguments from the panelists. And again, I say this as someone who respects them all professionally. I'm doing this one professional airing of grievances. Serena Singh is the woman who put this all together. We met each other actually at a Peterson lecture. She asked me to come out, and what I've heard from at least Gad and Oren Amate is this business of pragmatism. And if they want to play this, she spent money from her own pocket, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sensitive to that. I will say I also had conversations with Serena on how to start an Indiegogo site. I'm not sure if she actually did that to help crowdfund for this. I do know that tickets were not free. they charged for people to come in. So I would hope that they recouped their costs. And if not, they could have, frankly, borrowed a page from the Rebel.media's old book, which is passed around the bucket. You wanted to be here, guess what? Security cost us 5 Gs than what we had anticipated. If you guys believe in this and are happy that y'all are alive to go back to your families tonight, please donate more. And I believe that people put their money where their mouth is in today's society. And so I'm not going to buy the crying the blues over the cash. I'm just not going to buy it. This pragmatism of you don't want, protesters to come out. I was held at Canadian Christian College, and I'm hoping no Antifa has hung out to this point in the interview, but by and large, that place has been a bit of a Antifa no-go zone simply because it is so far away from the subway line. These freaks and geeks are not going to be able to bike ride all the way over there, so it's actually a bit of a safe space, so to speak. So, I'm not too sure. I'm not, thank God I'm a Christian, Alex, because that is a giant white pill. But all of this business over the past 3 months has been a bit of a black pill when it comes to the idea of principles, of values, and really the fight that I thought we're all in. Because it is so damn meta that a Stifling Free Speech on Campus event was indeed canceled. So their free speech was taken away. And then the Redux, the 2.0 version, then eliminated one of its speakers. It's so meta. And why? Why? Really, why? Because I was a bad journalist?
I personally, I think that
one of the people?
Your presence there, in my opinion, would have shifted the Overton window into a place where it needs to be, because the alt-right and guilt by association and associating with the alt-right and issues surrounding the alt-right and white nationalism are rising, and they're taboo still, and they need to be talked about. So I think it'd be beneficial to start talking about this, because I feel that you have, in many ways, been thrown under the bus just for guilt by association with groups that you don't necessarily endorse. And
I don't. You know what? I don't mind it because it's helped me really clarify where I am. As a Christian, I see this sort of persecution. I offer it up to God for the conversion of whomever. I get it, and it's forced me to really examine my political stances. But it is not by accident that the Daily Stormer is the most censored publication at this point that I can think about. It's basically in all of human history, save some workings from Galileo in early days. Okay, so if you stand up for that you're automatically labeled a neo-Nazi. Are we in this for free speech or aren't we? And this seems like rudimentary 101, this business of I might disagree with what you say, but I defend to the death your right to say it, right? Are we serious about that, or are we choosy? Because if we're being choosy on the right, or even the centrist part, then I'm sorry, you're just as bad as the SJWs, right? And so that's why the irony has been so completely rich in all of this. And when God said that, when Professor Saad said that, that I had opened this Pandora's box by tweeting your clip, my dear, that was not. I was not ha ya bunch of wah 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 wah. That's not what I said. I literally was just young man, ask these people, because my inbox was laden from people. I did not go very public with the fact that I was disinvited from this because I simply did not want to stir controversy. But my DM box was riddled with people who were where the hell were you? We didn't see you. So this was my thing. Okay, for the folks who were there, who weren't there, who have been questioning, here's the statement in the guy's own words, and my only sentence was, I was there to cover Charlottesville, not the crypto report. Mission accomplished. Agree to disagree. I didn't think that was inflammatory. I didn't think that was, a Pandora's box. I thought I was being rather civil about it. But of course, they had a different perspective, or at least for sure Professor Saad did. And so it's quite unfortunate. It is quite unfortunate because, as I said, I despise YouTube drama, and I want zero part in it whatsoever. But on the same note, I had no right to speak on this panel. I'm not in any sort of illusionment about that, okay? This was a private event, okay? This is not a public space. They had every right to disinvite me, but I have every right to question it after the fact, especially if they are going to label myself and my wonderful audience, okay, with one fell swoop, all sorts of libelous names. And so I'm a grown-up. I can conduct myself accordingly, and if we're going to air out our grievances publicly, well, then so be it. I will continue to be cordial to them, continue to follow their careers, because I think that, not to sound like a utilitarian here, but the net benefit of all of their individual, paths are greater than any sort of slight at me, and so I'll continue to support them and encourage others to support them, but I'm also not going to discourage people from questioning their rationale here.
That seems perfectly fair to me. And
thanks, Ben.
Thanks. I think that pretty much covers where we're at then with this event and everyone's position on it. Hopefully, maybe they might respond again after hearing this, because I'm not a fan of YouTube drama either. But I think this is the most relevant issue right now in free speech, especially since it's regarding the alt-right and issues of identitarianism and stuff like that. So I'm glad that we're actually clarifying this and getting all of this right out there, because it's very relevant.
Absolutely, and to be clear, this isn't YouTube drama of what is it, Red Pill Black and Blair White. Okay, these are real substantive issues that are very much a part of the current political culture and going forward. And whether people want to admit it or not, this BS of safe spaces and Trigglypuff, that's last year. Defending the free speech of the It's Okay to Be White and alt-right groups. If you can't stomach that, then get the hell out of the game, because frankly, you're ruining the optics and you are being logically inconsistent where I believe the movement ought to be.
Excellent. All right. There's a lot of things that I could talk to you all day about, and a lot of things that I'd love to pick your brain about sometime. But we've been talking for a long time now, and I guess we've really hit home on that issue. So I think I'll let you go now, because I don't want to.
All right, let's do this again. I'd be happy to come back on Freebird Media, and just so folks know, I'm going to be launching my own YouTube channel this week. I'm so excited. And so, look for videos for myself there. Faith Goldy, go subscribe. Find me on Twitter at Faith Goldy. And Alex, like I said, you're a great interviewer. I'm so happy that you're here. I love seeing you around town at all the important issues and events around free speech. You live up to your name, Freebird Media. So great to do this, and I'm happy to do it again sometime.
Thank you so much.
All right. God bless you, my friend.
Take care.